Hey guys, Jen Groves here. Um, just going through my to watch later playlist and realized that I hadn't done a AmeskeOHJ's hand me down tag, or uh, I would say it's more of an advice tag, but I hadn't done it yet. So I decided, hey, while I was sitting here, after I got done with it, I might as well start doing it and stuff like that. So anyway, um, so advice. There's a lot. First thing I would say is always ask advice. More advice is always good. As you guys know, like um, my lighting got better. Which I mean, I guess that was more of me and not, advice needed. But friends letting me know like, hey, you change a light around this area, you stand over here, you do this, it makes it better. Thumbnails, different stuff. It's always advice, and I've asked many people different things on what they think about a manga series, asking for advice. How do they align their shelves a certain way? How do you do thumbnails? What do you do for lighting? What do you do for this? Probably the only advice I haven't taken is editing, just because editing's kind of a pain in the butt and it's hard to do on a cell phone. So, um, but yeah, so number one, I would say definitely advice. Always make sure that if you have anything that you want to know, ask advice of it. Makes makes everything a lot better, and it might be something that it might be something that you need a little more explaining, you understand part of it, just different stuff like that. Um Number 2, budgeting. Make sure you budget. Uh Sometimes you can go overboard if you know that you're going to have the money for it. But, a lot of the time you're not always going to have that. So you always want to budget, know what's coming out, everything else. That's why a lot of stuff that I do is actually pre orders. Um, I will buy other series that are like currently out, different stuff like that, that I want, but um, it's only when I actually have the money for it. Usually, my scheduling is everything that's pre-orders, when it's coming out, how much it's going to be, approximately how much am I going to need. Do I have $60 coming out, or do I have $70 coming out? Different stuff like that. And that really helps out in the long run, knowing what's coming out already. Um, and along with budgeting, I guess it would be like an addendum to it, is make sure to look and see if there's discounts that you can get when you do it. If there's something that, like a special code, or a certain time when you can get it, different things like that, make sure you use it. You always will pay cheaper doing that, and it lets you get a little more in your manga collection when you do stuff like that. So that's really good too. Um, Another suggestion that I would say is always read descriptions, look at covers, all the other stuff. I mean, you're probably already doing that, but do it more, more so. Don't kind of ride the wave and say, "Oh yeah, I like what this person's saying." Ultimately, people are prone to leave out stuff for descriptions, or you might not have gotten a good look at a certain series of what it is, or anything like that. For me, I like the more like dungeon crawly fantasy kind of manga. So automatically, if there's anything that comes out like that, um, I usually jump the gun and go ahead and pre-order that, just because I know I'm gonna instantly like it. There's not very many that I don't like. Even if I didn't like the first volume, usually the second or third volume is what hooks me into the series, and it's just really good. I really enjoy it and all that other stuff. And then some of the other series are just ones that I buy because it's different, something that I can read. Maybe it's sci-fi, fantasy, or something like that. Something that I can enjoy that's different than fantasy. Give me a little time away from it, or romance, slice of life, different stuff like that. So that's kind of how a lot of mine goes. Um, but I mean, you have like a ton of different options out there for manga, and ones that you like that might not be what somebody else likes, or somebody that, if you're obviously watching us, you might not like what I like or somebody else likes. And, um, if it's something that seems like it's up your alley, something that you'll like, why not just go ahead and get it? It's at the end of the day, it would be better for you to buy something not as a recommendation, and you like it, than get it off of a recommendation and then have somebody, you know, that you're like, oh yeah, this is like the best person and everything else, and then turn around and read it and be like, no, that's not as good. Um, you know, not as good at all. Usually, I would say on stuff like that, though, trying new series or whatever, um, it will play a little bit on your money bank if it's something you might not like or whatever. You just never know. Um, so usually, I would say give it like a three to five book, depending. If if you read the first one, a lot of times the first and second volumes will have a little bit of a harder time kicking off. And so if it's something like that and you're like, oh yeah, I kind of like the first one, not really. The second one, kind of not really. And the third one, you kind of go, well, it's still good, but it's not something I want to continue. I would do that, but it also kind of gives you a little bit of, you can turn around and sell that, and or trade it off to somebody else that might like it, and they might have a series that you like better. Um, there are people that trade manga back and forth, or something like that. So I mean, it is really good in that aspect for having some of the other series like that, especially if it's not just one. I feel like a lot of people, if you only have like the first volume, then it's kind of like, hey, can you just like gift that to me instead of sell it to me? Unless you're buying it as like a lot, on eBay or something like that, because I guess it's just how a lot of people kind of feel that way. You're giving me a taste to see if I want to do it. So if you have more and you're just going to give me volume one, and then, say, hey, I have 2 through 20, you know, and they're like, yeah, yeah, I enjoyed the first one. It's kind of that little taste that they do to get into it. So, um, there is different stuff like that. So, I guess that's advice number 3. Always kind of check your stuff. Um, and then I guess for like advice 4, we'll only probably do like 5 advice. There's way more than that, but I'm sure other people will do this video here and there, and you'll get some other good advice too. For 4, I would say sometimes go out on a limb and randomly pick up a volume. If the Don't read the description. Look at the cover. Maybe it's something, and it might not be the best of the best, but it's something you can enjoy. Um, Even if it's something that's not like super big that you enjoy or anything like that, it will actually make one of them that you super enjoy later on, more enjoyable. So, for instance, if I am reading a dungeon crawly one, or a fantasy one, and I'm really enjoying it, well then, I go to another one and I go to another one, kind of loses steam with it. So then if I read like a comedy, we'll say that, like a four panels one, you can get into that, you can enjoy it and do that because, hey, something in it will give you a laugh. And then after that, it's kind of like, you go back to reading fantasy again and you'll enjoy it so much more because you had something that took away, that you had something that wasn't as great, but it, you know, served its purpose basically, and you still enjoyed it even though it wasn't like the best. So there's kind of a place for everything with that. I think, a lot of ones, even if they're on hiatus or are like on hiatus complete, where they're never going to get off hiatus because of a company or something like that. I usually always enjoy the little stories like that because they do serve that purpose, and it's maybe another idea that I could have seen where somebody went with an idea of one of my favorite series, and I felt like they did better. So, you can kind of do that, and you can kind of talk about it, and it gives you more insight to other manga too, I think. So that's it. With that, that's advice 4. So, advice 5, overall, I would say, you know, not. I mean, it's still a form of advice, but I would say kind of different. I'd say pick out some people that know certain things that they like and that you like, kind of as like a buddy group in a community, whether you have one that's like open for you everywhere or um, one that's online or whatever, just however it is, and make sure that you get kind of a couple different groups of those. Like I said earlier, not everybody's going to like the same series as you, but you can have a lot of different people like a bunch of different series and stuff like that. I have one friend that just totally um, jumps into uh, dungeon crawlies and monster girls and everything, and just loves them as much as I do. And I always enjoy talking to them because it's um, it's just great being able to talk to somebody that can dive into it and talk about them as much as I can. But then, on the other side of the spectrum, I do have friends that like more sports manga. So everybody kind of has a purpose here and there. Sometimes you can get friends that like different ones, that will read and like sports and something else, maybe just one certain series. So everybody kind of can get a connection with somebody or another off of all these different series. Um, at least everybody has one series that somebody else has that you can talk about because you enjoyed. So that's kind of the whole thing that I try and do, is enjoy every series, because then I can go along and talk to everybody about whatever series I enjoyed or whatever series I'm reading or whatever series I read, different stuff like that. So, um, you know, and I would say that's really good advice on for that fifth one, especially. Um, you know, find people that you can kind of talk with. It'll make the manga that much better. Just like if I'm trying to think of a comparison. Um, if you grew a plant or something, if you grew an orange or an apple tree, and then all the work that you put into it, you finally got to reap the benefits of it finally producing fruit and stuff. Kind of the same thing. You'll enjoy manga more with a companion that enjoys it as well. So, you are going to have other people out there that don't like certain series. So, that one is kind of, but you'll always have at least somebody that enjoys it and dives into a series and stuff. So, but yeah, I highly recommend that. Um, you know, going for more advice, everything else. And yeah, so I guess this is going to be it for the video right here. I will catch you guys later. I'm Jen Graves. Thanks for watching. Go over and check out AmeskeOHJ's tag, the starting one, and go check out, I believe Otaku Mike's done one, maybe a few others. So you can check it out and see how other people gave out advice and what they did in that, you know, for this tag. So anyway, I will catch you guys later. Bye.